approaching a final note here. I hope that you can understand how your self-talk and your self-esteem has a great deal of impact on your self-control. One other thing that I would like to add is that you can also teach children to monitor their own behavior. You can have them make tally marks, like if we're working with a kid on teaching them to be on task. What we first want to do is we want to teach them to be self-aware, okay? And so we can say, okay, here's a sheet with a whole bunch of boxes on it, and I'll attach one here at the end of the presentation or on my website for you to download. And I just want you to notice every time during this half hour, I want you to put a plus if you're on task and a minus if you're not. And then we're going to reward you, or let you reward yourself for how many times you notice if you're on task or not. So it's not whether they're on task or not, it's how often they notice whether they are or not. So we're teaching them to pay attention to themselves a little bit more closely. I can't tell you how many kids I've talked to who are 6 or 7 years old, and they're often daydreaming in class, and I'll ask them, do you ever daydream? And they say, no. They're not even aware that their brain had checked out, okay? They haven't learned the skill of being able to think about what they're thinking about, all right? This is called metacognition. It is self-awareness. If you're not self-aware, you're not going to be able to self-regulate very well. I think that that makes a lot of sense. So we can teach them, first of all, to begin self-monitoring so that they can become more self-aware. Then we can teach them to self-evaluate. They can compare how well they did today to yesterday or this week to last week. And finally, we can let them give them their own rewards. And what we can also do is we can maybe have an adult rating them also and make sure their ratings are similar to how the adult rated them. And as long as they rate themselves similar to the way the adult rated them, then they get the reward. The reason why we want to do this is it teaches children to regulate themselves. The only problem with having adults always giving the rewards and noticing them doing well is the adult can become what's called the discriminating stimuli. So now, whenever the child sees this person come in the room, then all of a sudden they sit up and they start acting right. We want them to use more of the context and the setting rather than the person. We want them to be able to continue to have behavioral improvements after the adult who is rewarding them is gone. And what our research says is that if we teach children to self-monitor, self-evaluate, and self-reward, that the behavioral changes and gains that they make are more stable over time, they last longer, than if we have an adult doing the monitoring and evaluating